hello everyone, and thank you so much again for joining us for Safe Money Radio. You might be listening on the radio, you might be watching on YouTube or listening to a podcast, but we have another great guest with us on the show today. He's been on before. Alex Murguia, thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thank you for having me. It's my absolute pleasure.
Well, hey, I just want to do this publicly before we get started. I owe you an apology, and I want to do this in front of the entire world. You probably know what's coming, but I want to apologize for the beatdown that my Kansas City Chiefs gave your Miami Dolphins twice last year. So go Chiefs. I knew you would want to start the show that way.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Now, didn't you go to the game in London?
Frankfurt. Yeah, I went to Frankfurt. I had a buddy of mine. He's a couple of friends of mine are working abroad, and any chance he gave me a reason to go visit them. So it was fantastic. But I will say this: the Chiefs fans outnumbered the Dolphin fans in Frankfurt. I almost like I'm doing this eyeballing, but 4-1.
Wow.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I didn't know there were so many people in Kansas City with all this money to go to Frankfurt for the weekend. I was like, really?
Hey, it's a Kansas City Chiefs world, and we're all just living in it. That's the way it is.
Apparently, Red Nation's a thing. Who knew?
It's a thing. It's a real deal. Go Chiefs. So now that everyone listening is having a blast in the Ozarks hearing this, all of you that are listening across the world, if you don't like the Chiefs, well, you're just jealous. It's all right. Everyone loves the Chiefs. Inside, we're all my homies. Just get over it. So, hey, we've never opened a show like this, but it's a great way to open the show. So
no, it's fine, man. No, I actually always liked the Chiefs. Derek Thomas is like a Miami guy. Grew up in Miami, so I've always loved him. Len Dawson, that picture of Len Dawson with a dart in the locker room during the Super Bowl. Those kind of things. I like the Chiefs a lot.
Yeah, well, great. Well, hey, we do seriously appreciate you being on, and I will say this as we begin the show. So much of the times on Safe Money Radio, it's mainly people that are listening that are planning for retirement, and they're trying to learn key information every week, and we're educators. We want to put the information out there as retirement income certified professionals, and this is going to benefit all of the people who are planning for retirement. But this show is also going to benefit all the advisors and the financial professionals that listen. And we have an increasing list of financial professionals who listen to us every single week. And you're going to pick up something that's going to change your business forever too. So it's going to benefit a lot of people. And here's what I want to do to start, Alex, because I know your colleagues with Dr. Wade Fowle, David Blanchett, Heather Schreiber, Michael Finka, a lot of people that we've had on the show this year already, but I take for granted that when people are listening that they don't know my guest like I do. So take a few minutes, if you will, just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and we'd love to hear about you.
Sure. I have a doctorate in clinical psychology. And interestingly enough, I got into finance because I had an NIH fellowship, and they give you money. They fund your school, and they give you a stipend. And for me, that was like, you give a graduate student money, and you're like, wow, I'm rich. What do I do now? And that got me on the road to investing. But from a statistical standpoint, that was my background. So as soon as I left graduate school, started McLean Asset Management with my partner, Dean Umamoto. And I was more of a practitioner than anything. But along the way, we wrote some articles and the like, and it was very well received. And so we were able to keep this scientist practitioner model, going strong. Somewhere along the line, I would say about 12 years ago or so, ran into Wade, and Wade and I hit it off greatly, and we worked on a couple of projects together, and I invited Wade to join us in our firm, McLean Asset Management, to come on over, and we turned his blog at the time, Retirement Researcher, into a membership site. Yeah. And so I've kind of usually am behind the scenes on the research. I don't publish too much because we're running a business, if you will. But we truly believe in this scientist practitioner model when it comes to providing advice. And so we like to do things ourselves, roll our sleeves up. And, when you've got folks like Wade and Bob French as another key member of the team, life is good in terms of being able to balance out credibility with running a business from a wealth management standpoint.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, for those of you listening right now, know I always at least give a phone number so that you can call in at any point, because we love to tell stories and we'll get going back and forth. And this show is going to last for quite a while. So if you are wanting more information, you can always call in at any time to get more information about the things we're talking about on the show today. The number is easy to remember. It's 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. We'll be right back after this break. We're going to keep talking about some important things with my good friend. So, hey, Alex, we're so grateful to have you on the show today. And we were, you gave a little bit of an introduction about yourself in the beginning. And I want to jump right into something that really transformed the business for myself and for my son, Hunter. I've been in business for 16 years and we've used all kinds of programs and software and ways to really connect to our clients to uncover what's going on in their life and what the purpose is for their money. I've been writing about the purpose of money for 15 years. But I will never forget, it was a day in, I think, December of 22, Hunter came in my office and said, game changer. And I'm like, all right, what's a game changer? And he goes, you're going to have to get on this webinar with Dr.
Sure.
Wade Pfau and Alex Murguia. You got to listen. He said, I've been watching this stuff and it's going to change everything for us. I'm like, all right. So we did. And thankfully, the RISA that we're going to talk about throughout the show today was something that we jumped on board on from the very beginning. We were blessed to be, I guess, some of the first people to use it, but we now have used it with our clients for a year and a half. And I talk about it everywhere I go. I try to share it with financial professionals that don't know anything about it because it will transform what they're doing for their practice and for their clients, because it's so important from a fiduciary responsibility to make sure we're doing what's in the best interest of our clients. And I think the RISA is a game changer. So if you will, tell us what RISA is, what it stands for. Just share with us some stuff about it and what you're doing with Wade Pfau.
Yeah, RISA stands for Retirement Income Style Awareness. Voila, right? It's kind of cool from our standpoint that RISA means laughter in Spanish. Translates to laughter. So, you know me, and Wade is actually quite a jokester as well. He's just more of a behind-the-scenes jokester, but he's just as bad as I am, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's kind of fitting in that sense. But what it is if you really think about it, at the end of the day, think of it as a personality assessment tool for how you want to source retirement income. And so what we're doing is bringing in our view, the best that retirement income planning has to offer from a science. And frankly, we're blending it with personality psychology. The reality is that we're blending it together to really discover the trade-offs folks are making when they're deciding on a retirement income plan. There's certain trade-offs that you have to make, and none of them are right or wrong. It's just your proclivity for how you want to do things. And I think that's really the magic there. I would venture to say, Brad, you and Hunter have been doing this, but probably implicitly over the last, X number of years. What we were able to do, and I think good science does this, is surface what was implicit, and just put a framework around it so it's more quantifiable. And so the RISA effectively, again, is able to identify via two factors how somebody wants to source retirement income, and that then becomes the starting point. That's not necessarily a rubber stamp, but it becomes the starting point for a strategy that you as an advisor can help curate the client on. But the key is now the client has, in effect, permissioned you in a way in terms of what you want to look at a little more so than other items. And so you're not coming at it for Brad, this is what I would do if I were you. You're coming at it from, okay, this is how you want to do it. Let's see if I can get you there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's you kind of know this as good as I do at this point. I think that captures it, right?
No, absolutely. And I've been saying this for years. A lot of times they'll have me speak at a conference and say, hey, go over what your process is when new clients come in the door. And I get it. When clients walk in the door, whether they've heard me on the radio or seen me on TV or seen a billboard or whatever, they're still scared. They're nervous when they come in. They don't know what to expect. Yeah. And I have a very laid back approach. I've been doing this for years. Yellow legal pad. I have a word written on the paper before they ever get there. The word is purpose. And in the first 10 minutes of our talk, I'm going to say, you came in here for a reason. There's something that's on your mind. You're unhappy with what's going on where you are, or you don't have an advisor or a professional. And tell me a little bit about that. And then let's uncover the purpose for the money you're wanting to move. And I go over what the four main purposes for money are. And I talk about that in my book, Bulletproof. But I still do that, Alex, in every single meeting. But the beauty now is if they call in and they ask for an appointment before they're ever here, I say, hey, I'm going to send you something called the RISA. It's going to take you about 15 minutes to take. It stands for Retirement Income Style Awareness. It's going to help us uncover what your preferred style is for your future retirement. And if you're married and you each want to take it, you can each take it. And so I email them this link, and I actually email them sometimes our segment that we've done before on the show, and one with Alec or with Wade, and let them watch a little bit about it because they love learning about these two PhDs, psychology and finance, and why they created this. And the beauty is they get a customized report sent to them. We get it. And before they've ever come into our office, it's fantastic from a fiduciary standpoint because we can already see what quadrant they fall into, what kind of preferences they have. And then it's a really good starting point to have our first meeting with someone. So
I think it's great. I would say this. I do something very similar before. When I used to see clients, I would have a notepad and I would write, "Be quiet."
Listen to them, right?
No.
Yeah,
I couldn't help myself. Sorry.
that's good. That's good.
No, I think you're right, man. Look, what for advisors that are listening in, I mean, the reality is that, and for consumers, just so they know, a little behind the scenes baseball here. Look, there's a big trend right now, a movement towards blending behavioral finance with practical application of financial planning. But it kind of dies on the vine at the end of the day because they just say these are the biases you have, and there's nothing you can do with it. There's nothing you can do about it, so it is what it is. That kind of conclusion, and that kind of does. I don't think anyone's happy listening. You're not happy saying that, and a consumer, a prospect won't be happy hearing that because, and then what, right? And so I think we're able to give this some practical application. We're able to bring in psychology and financial planning and give it a practical manner in which an advisor can use it and actually move forward the dialogue.
Very good. Well, friends, if you're listening right now, especially if you're local to the Springfield, Missouri area, even though I am licensed in about 15 states, but if you've never had the opportunity to take the RISA, the Retirement Income Style Awareness Questionnaire, and you want to, just reach out to us. Call us at 866-780-7233. You can request a free consultation. You can request a copy of my book, Bulletproof, The Safe and Secure Retirement Income Plan. Or you could just say, hey, I want to take the RISA. And I will reach back out to you and send you a free copy. You don't have to pay for it. We pay for it for all of you. And then it will send you a customized report. And then we can get back on the phone together or in person and go over that. So 866-780-7233. So, Alex, you said something before that it made me think of something. And, Hunter and I have been using this for a little while now. And I want you to talk about why it's so important for someone to discover what their specific retirement income style is. Because a lot of times when I meet with someone and they're coming from somewhere else, I will say, well, are you meeting your goals there? Well, we never really talked about what my goals were. Well, how long have you been there? 15 years. Well, it's probably important to know how you're going to use it, because there was a neat story on the news this week about the importance of coming back down Mount Everest. And it said more people die on the way down than on the way up. And people don't realize retirement planning is the same way. Like all the building and saving and all that's great, but coming back down, spending the money, turning on the income is the most difficult part of it, making that last the rest of your life. So it's probably a pretty good idea to have discovered what your retirement style is and what your purposes are. So talk about why that's important from that psychology background you've got for us all there.
I think there's a few things, and I'll preface it with a financial piece to it. I mean, you're very right. It's a common analogy, right? Going up a mountain is different than going down the mountain. More hikers get hurt, different body, different muscles that you're activating all of a sudden. It's no different than retirement in the sense of there's new risks that you face in retirement from a pure financial planning standpoint. There's longevity risk, which is the fear of outliving your money. The good news is, hey, you've lived a long time. The bad news is, unfortunately, you don't have a way to fund it because you've lived a long time, right? Yeah. And there's that piece to it. And then there's liquidity risk. That's a new risk because before you had human capital, you had a job to fund the everyday slings and arrows. But when you're retired, you don't have that. And so you can't just, let me leave my portfolio. In fact, it's a good time to dollar cost average when the market's down while I'm working because, I get more bang for my buck. In retirement, that's kind of different, right? Because you don't have an income that you can tap into and just wait. So you have these two new economic realities that you have to account for. So
Yeah.
that's number one. And now I think what happens is for an individual is they don't realize that there's many ways to get your retirement income right. You listen to the news and you really think there's only one way, maybe, which is
Yeah.
just put it in the market, hope for the best, take out a sustainable withdrawal rate, and call it a day. That
Right.
could be viable for some folks, but that's very unnerving for a lot of folks, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
You don't optimize your life on an Excel sheet. You optimize your life based on the comfort you have from an enjoyment of my life. It's a more existential optimization, if you will. And so the RISA will be able to point out, if you don't want to just have a sustainable withdrawal rate, let's figure out what strategy makes sense for you so you can be comfortable in it, so you can enjoy retirement as opposed to, waiting for the next shoe to drop in the market. And so I think that's what happens to consumers, really. They don't realize that there's no one ring to rule them all. There
That's
really
right.
isn't. Whoever tells you that, just get up and walk away from the office, because that doesn't work, right? It's almost like put your hand on their head and say, "Devil, release this person." That kind of thing.
That's right.
But
Right.
it doesn't work, right? And whoever thinks that is really, they need to have more humility when they're providing advice. If that's my point of view, granted. And so I think being able to just accommodate many worldviews and being able to listen to that person gives you a lot of resources, fertile ground for discussion to be able to create a strategy in that discovery meeting that makes sense for that person.
Boy, that is so good. And yesterday morning, Hunter and I joked that we get up early in the mornings and we go to LinkedIn. It's the only social media I'm on, but
Yeah.
I get there. I'm looking for anything Wade Fowle says, anything David Blanchett says. They post early in the mornings a lot of time. And David Blanchett had something. It was so good yesterday. It was research that indicated professionals' opinions regarding annuities, and 24% of the people polled said, no matter what, under any circumstances, no matter what I learn, I would never, ever suggest an annuity for a client. And that was kind of mind blowing, that a quarter of all people, that no matter what the research says, if they're PhDs, if they've done 20 years of research, I'm never going to offer that. And that just kind of reminds me that there are people that are kind of a one-stop shop, that they've only got one thing they offer. That's why they're a one-stop shop. And that's why we love using the RISA. We're a full shop where I do focus on the safety side of things. I do a lot of tax planning, annuities, life insurance, income planning. Hunter does more of the risk management side of things. And so when we have someone take the RISA and we find out what quadrant or quadrants they fall into as a couple, we can then take the report, sit down with them and say, perfect, here's where everything's at. You might have 401ks, IRAs, cash accounts, 403bs, whatever it is, and then come up with a plan for coming back down the mountain and what different types of programs they should be involved in order to make it accomplish their purposes and their desires. So that's what the RISA will help do. So if you're listening right now and you want to learn more about the RISA and you want to take it, we can email that to you. We can provide it to you at the office. Either way, if you want a free consultation or access to the RISA, just call us. Our number is 866-780-7233. And when we come back, we're going to jump into some of the specifics about the RISA. So stay with us. 866-780-7233. Okay, Alex, let's do this. I know it took us quite a while, even as professionals studying it, to get down the different quadrants in the RISA and different buckets that people fall into. And so there are 4. When someone takes the RISA, they're going to fall into either total return, time segmentation, protected income, or risk wrap. And I want to start off by talking about 2 of them. Like, let's talk about total return and time segmentation. What does it mean when someone falls into the total return quadrant?
Sure. When someone falls into the total return quadrant, what they've done is they've scored high on 2 factors. The first one being they're more probability based. Okay. And there's a counter to that, but for right now, we're focusing on total return. They're more probability based. That means that they're comfortable with the probability that over the long term, the markets will go up. Mm-hmm. And so because the markets will go up, that's a statement that that's an assumption. Okay. That's not at the top. I'm not saying that's a fact. I'm just pointing it out, and so if they're comfortable with that assumption, then they naturally feel that they can distribute assets from their portfolio, because over time the markets will go up. Like a well, you're taking water from a well, but you're pretty sure that it's going to rain.
Right.
And so I can continue to take water, right? That's the argument, right? In terms of a probability base. They're also high on optionality, which means that they're fine with a more variable income approach. Some years will be good, some years may not be so good, but I have the option to switch things around as needed. You're not married to something, and so you can like maneuver yourself around it. And so
Yeah.
the total return approach is you have an investment portfolio, usually stocks and bonds, and you're going to take what you deem to be a sustainable withdrawal rate from that. And sustainable means that I can do it year after year without depleting that portfolio, because the markets will go up, so it'll replenish whatever I've taken it. Okay.
Good.
Time
Good.
segmentation, otherwise known as bucketing, is another
Yes.
way of referring to it. And that maintains the optionality of it, the optionality where, I want to look at it. Well, let me backtrack just a little bit on bucketing and time segmentation. What you're doing there is think about, you have jars, right? And so you're putting money in jars for, this is my 1 year spending, my 2 year spending, etc. And you go out however many years. And the idea there is that you've had this income that's going to come from, from those to fund essential expenses. While that's happening, your reserve assets are invested in the market, and hopefully over the long term, let's say 5+ years, they'll go up, etc. Right? And so
Right.
that's the strategy in a nutshell. Obviously, there's somebody that's going to say, "Oh, you didn't say this or that," but for the purposes of this, that's fine. All right.
Yeah.
And so there, what you're doing is there's a safety first component to it, because what's in the jars is being managed usually by bonds, something along those lines. It could be MIGAs, it could be multi-year, guaranteed annuities. There's many ways to do it, but the point is that you have safe money. Being that we're on Safe Money Radio, you have
That's right.
safe money for this temporal, short-term, essential expenses that you're going to need, right? And so that's the safety first part of it. The optionality part of it is that, maybe you go out 3 years, 4 years, but when that time is done and you need to replenish those jars, you need, maybe the market didn't perform as well as you wanted to. Maybe it did, but you have to be flexible
Yeah.
from that vantage point. Now, there's a bit of a behavioral thing going on there, because if you really think about it, probability and optionality, there's a natural correlation. Those things tend to correlate nicely. I think the correlation is like 0.6, something like
Yeah.
that. So you have competing points of views if you're safety first and you want optionality, because safety first implies a contract. Contracts kind of lock things in. They don't give you a lot of optionality. So the optionality comes from a temporal perspective.
Yes. Very,
Did that
very
do the
good.
trick?
I want to add something to that. That makes perfect sense. And I know we throw terms out a lot, and I have to kind of slow down and realize, hey, the listeners, what in the world? Especially when it comes to annuities, I'll say this all the time. There are MIGAs, SPIAs, DIAs,
Yeah.
fixed indexed, variable, QLACs. Like, what in the world is all that? Well, Alex just said MIGA. Here's a great example of the bucket strategy and the jars. You might purchase a MIGA, a multi-year guaranteed annuity. That's an insurance company's version of a CD at a bank, only it's
Yeah.
insured. It's a contract. So you might, in that jar, we're just going to pull number out of the air, $100,000 in there. And right now in 2024, about 5%. You can get a 3 or 4 or 5 year MIGA for about 5%. No, that's a guaranteed rate of return on that, tax deferred, no 1099 annually like a CD. While over here in your other buckets, you can take on more risk because you've got your guarantee and your basis cover. So that would just be one of many examples. So we love that. And here's what's ironic, Alex. I know we a lot of times will talk about how many people have taken it personally with us.
Yeah.
And it's pretty ironic that, at least in this part of the country, the majority of them fall into the protected income bracket. They are trying to save for retirement. They don't want a lot of risk. They've already had that part. When they're in their 60s and retirement, they're kind of looking for the guaranteed income. But last week, 3 clients took the RISA locally. All 3 were time segmentation, what we're talking about right now. And so it can just be rocking along, being a lot of risk wrap and protected income,
Yeah.
and then boom, it's all time segmentation. It's based on your own specific situation.
Results
so
vary, right?
Yeah, that's right. And so that's why we want you, if you're listening, and you're probably, your mind's like, man, I love this stuff, I want to know more about this, then all you have to do is call us anytime. We will provide the RISA to you. You can take it free of charge and find out what you fall into, and we can talk about what that means. Call us anytime at 866-780-7233. And when we come back, we're going to jump into the other side of it. So the other two quadrants, 866-780-7233. Ask for a free consultation, or say you want to take the RISA. You can ask for a copy of my book, Bulletproof. We're here to help. Call us anytime. Okay, Alex. So in the last segment, we talked about two of the quadrants in the RISA. In the retirement income style awareness, it was total return and time segmentation. Now let's jump into the other two, protected income and risk wrap. Tell us about those.
Sure. Protected income is the polar opposite, if you will, of total return. And the two factors that you're leaning towards there are safety first and a commitment orientation. And so safety first, I'll talk about that factor. It's the opposite of probability based. And what you see there is that it's not so much that they don't understand that the markets go up or the markets work, or it's not a numeracy kind of thing. I think sometimes that gets thrown around, right?
Yeah.
It's just folks don't want to tether themselves to the stock market. They want to take the liabilities that they have in the future and they want to give that to someone else. They want to give that responsibility to someone. And so that is effectively what you get with the safety first. You want a contractual basis for generating retirement income. You want to take the risk off your balance sheet and for an economic exchange, put them on someone else's. And I think that's what folks actually get wrong. And I think professionals as well, when they say, contracts, and I'm going to say that, proxy for annuities are expensive. Well, you're treating them as investments. They're not investments. They're insurance products, and you have to pay for some of the risks that they're taking on, which is you're going to live a long time and they need to provide income, et cetera, et cetera. So it's this misnomer. And in fact, I would say it's lazy thinking if an advisor just says, those are expensive, I'm never, ever going to do that. Right. I think those folks, hand over their heart, are not doing what they need to be doing just as a professional.
Yes.
I don't know how else to say it other than that. Sometimes it just is what, you just got to be blunt about it. And so there's that piece to it. There's this safety first component, but there's also a commitment orientation. And a commitment orientation, different to optionality, is what you're telling yourself is, if I can solve this problem for the rest of my life right now, and it suits it, it fits my needs, I'm going to do it. Yes, things could get better, but the inverts could also happen. So I don't want any aggravation around that. And it has a component of healthcare in the sense of, as I get older, I may not be able to juggle all these balls. And so I can start automating my retirement income. There's that piece to it. If not just for themselves, for a spouse that may not be the one handling the finances and the like. And so income protection is along the lines of a pension. It's just you're buying a personal pension via, you said it before, a single premium immediate annuity, a fixed indexed annuity, a deferred annuity, et cetera. You can describe those things better than I can. And so that's what you have there. On the risk wrap side of it, you have a probability-based tilt, but you're still in that commitment orientation. And the folks that are on the bottom tend to have strong longevity aversion, which means they're really worried about running out of money before they pass, right? And so they want that safety net. And so in the risk wrap, it's kind of, goes back to an opposing view, because you can see where if your commitment orientation and your safety first, they kind of go together. A risk wrap, similar to time segmentation, it's a behavioral piece because you want market exposure, but you want this guarantee. You want the safety net guarantee. That's hard to come by. And so the industry really started creating products around this. Again, implicitly, I don't think, there's this RISA and look at this, here you go. No, it just kind of happens, right? And so what that is, you're getting market exposure, but you have guardrails in place to protect you from worst case scenarios, if you will. Now, if you chop off the bottoms, if you chop off the left side of the curve, conversely, you'll do it as well with the right side. So they'll give you that safety, but they'll trim the upside as well, simply because you have to structure a product that can do this successfully from an insurance standpoint, and that's how you got to do it. And so those are more different types of solutions, such as registered index linked annuity, which I'll let you do the honors of explaining, or a variable annuity with living benefits, those things where you're getting that market exposure, somewhat tempered, but you're still getting market exposure, but you're paying for a floor of potential income if the need will arise because the markets just didn't pan out the way you wanted them to.
Yeah, so good. And I know it's kind of a simplistic definition of just taking the two words risk wrap, but so many people that come in say, I'm okay with risk as long as I know it's wrapped with some security. And so, and as an example, a fixed indexed annuity can work great in that scenario where, like, hey, I want to be as aggressive as I can be in this as long as I know I can't lose my principal. Absolutely. There's a way to do that using indexes. So, but no, you did a beautiful job of explaining that. So, I know it's quick for our listeners. We're kind of going over all this information regarding your retirement income style, and there's total return, there's time segmentation, there's protected income, there's risk wrap, there's optionality, there's safety. You've got all these different elements, but that's why it's so important to work with someone who's already done all the hard work for you, like Alex and Wade. They've done the hard work. It's all put together in this, and we get to go in and use this software, use this information with our clients, and we're so grateful. So if you're listening right now, you've never had any financial professional talk to you about your purpose for money or about what your goals are for the future, or even helping you determine what you should be doing with it, you need to give us a call. Call us anytime at 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. Ask for a free consultation. Ask to take the RISA. We'll be more than happy to provide that to you free of charge. And we're going to be back with one more segment with Alex right after this. So call us at 866-780-7233. All right, Alex, I know shifting gears from the RISA, but it's kind of all part of it too. You've been hosting a podcast of your own for a while now, the Retire with Style podcast, and our good friend, Dr. Wade Fowle, is your guest on the show, or your co-host, and Hunter and I have been on the show, and we've listened to dozens of your episodes. Like, how many episodes are you up to now? Do you know?
A
lot.
More than 120, less than 140, something like that.
Okay, very good. So people all over the world listen to the Retire with Style podcast. You've got some great guests on the show. So tell us a little bit about the podcast. It's a lot of fun, and people can look you up and find that. But what kind of topics do you cover on Retire with Style?
It's really a sartorial take on fashion, how retirees dress.
Okay, very good.
And because I'm in awe of the vest that you have right now. I'm wondering, like, your midsection is cold, but your arms are warm, hence a vest.
That's right. It's the Midwest. It's in the 50s now. It's going to be 70 this afternoon, and I can take this off later. That's what we got going on.
It's a take on fashion. You know what I mean? No, because if you look at Wade and myself, that's what you think, fashion. No,
exactly.
We effectively, we started with the RISA, and we're trying to, how do we pepper in? At the end of the day, the RISA we're realizing that these decisions go beyond retirement income style. Safety first, probability based, commitment orientation, and optionality. That affects a lot of other decisions, Medicare, Social Security claiming strategies, etc. And so there's a common thread. And effectively, we're able to take Wade's book. Wade wrote a great book on retirement income planning. And we're just going through the chapters of it where it covers Social Security, Medicare, long-term planning, healthcare. We're just setting them up and knocking them down one by one. And we're trying to provide a soup to nuts informational on all things retirement income planning that someone can listen in. And I don't know if they're going to learn, everything you need and you're done, but it's going to be able to point you in the right direction so you can further peel that onion. And then it's an opportunity to provide a little pattern interrupt where Wade is usually lecturing. We try to break it up and just have it a more of a conversational tone about this.
Yeah. And where can they find the podcast?
Go to risaprofile.com podcast. It's there, but it's everywhere. Spotify,
wherever you get your podcast, right? That's everybody.
You get your podcast. It's syndicated. Retire with Style. Look us up, and we'll be there.
Great. And I tell everyone the same thing. If you're listening on the radio and you didn't know that this show is podcast, it is. I know Hunter said we had 48 people subscribed this week, so it's growing by about 50 people a week. So Safe Money Radio, just go to YouTube, type in Brad Pistole, Safe Money Radio. We've had some great people on the show. Dr. Wade Fowle, Alex Murguia, David Blanchett, Heather Shriver, Michael Finka, Ed Slott, Tom Hegna, and we have some key people coming up in the next few weeks. So our goal is financial literacy and financial education, getting the best information out to consumers. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Easiest things, find us on YouTube, but again, it's on Apple and Spotify and other places. So everyone that's listening, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so blessed to have Alex on the show. Alex, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And if you want to take the RISA, the Retirement Income Style Awareness, just give us a call. If you want a copy of my book, Bulletproof, The Safe and Secure Retirement Income Plan, just give us a call. Remember, America's IRA expert Ed Slott wrote the foreword to this book, and we talk about the tax tumors that are inside your retirement accounts and how to get them back out in the most tax-efficient way. So if you need a free financial consultation, or you want to take the RISA, or you want a book, just call us. 866-780-7233, and there's always someone standing by to take your call. Have a great week, and as Alex always says, go Chiefs!
Yeah, exactly.
Y'all have a great week.